I never imagined I'd uncover the heart-wrenching stories of torture that shaped history. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It was a cold, gray morning, and my world shifted on its axis. The scent of damp earth filled the air, as my heart raced with anticipation and fear. I had stumbled across a hidden chamber in the back of the old library, a place no one dared to enter. Dust motes danced in the weak light, revealing shelves lined with forgotten tomes, each holding secrets that made my skin crawl. That I thought I knew the stories of the past. Painful episodes of humanity buried in history, yet this was different. This wasn't just ink on a page. This was the raw, pulsating heart of suffering. I felt it in my bones. Pages crinkled beneath my trembling fingers, whispering tales of unimaginable horror. These narratives, once hidden from view, screamed out for acknowledgement. I gasped, gripping the book tightly. As my eyes scanned the words, there was a story of a young woman, her wrists shackled, her spirit broken by the weight of betrayal. Each sentence cut deeper. I could hear her silent cries echoed through time, the chill running through me as I pictured her trembling in the dim light of her cell. The images invaded my thoughts, each more harrowing than the last. I shook my head, desperate to push the horrors away, but they clung to me like shadows. And then there was the unnerving tale of a soldier, standing against the tides of war, forced to commit atrocities that haunted him long after. I could almost feel the heat of his shame, mingling with the coldness of his grip on the rifle. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the flood of emotions, but it was too late. I was tangled in the web of their stories, desperately seeking understanding and solace that I knew wouldn't be found. My phone buzzed, pulling me back to reality. It was my brother, Israel, checking in as he always did. I opened my messages, but my heart wasn't in it. How could I explain the depths of what I was experiencing? I was drowning, gasping for air as the weight of history pressed down on me. I needed to know more. Why hadn't anyone spoken of these stories for so long? Why were they buried in darkness? I felt a rising sense of urgency, a need to uncover the truth. Something was whispering to me, urging me to dig deeper. The thrill of discovery mixed with the reality of horror. I was on the edge of something monumental. But as I prepared to turn the next page, an icy breeze wrapped around me, sending chills down my spine. The sensation of being watched crept in, an unsettling presence lurking in the shadows of the library. In that moment, I froze. Was I truly alone, or was there someone or something waiting for the right moment to strike? My heart pounded, a relentless beat echoing in the stillness. I sensed the tension shift, and I realized that the stories I sought might hold more danger than I ever imagined. What other secrets lay hidden in this cursed chamber? My skin prickled in anticipation, fear gripping me tightly. I took a deep breath, preparing to face whatever lay ahead. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The library had always embraced silence, a sanctuary wrapped in dusty books and flickering shadows. But now, it felt oppressive, charged with the weight of unspoken horrors. I clutched the book tighter, my knuckles turning pale, determined to brave the ominous energy that seeped from every corner. I flipped the page, my heart racing, my breath shallow. As I read, time lost significance, each sentence dragging me further into the abyss of despair. The woman's story became increasingly vivid, the stark images of her suffering haunting my mind's eye. My thoughts swirled like fog, and for a moment, I felt myself slipping back in time, standing in that cell, feeling the frigid chains against my skin, hearing the cries of those lost to history. It was a vivid experience, both exhilarating and suffocating. Suddenly, a soft sound echoed from the far end of the chamber, a whisper, barely more than a breath. My heart leapt. I tucked the book under my arm, squinting into the dimness. For all my fears, a flicker of curiosity drew me toward the source of the sound. Perhaps another seeker, a fellow traveler through hidden histories? I took a cautious step forward, the floorboards creaking like old bones beneath me. As I rounded a shelf, I came to a stop. A young woman stood there, her hair cascading like dark waves, shoulders bent forward as if the weight of the world rested on them. "I'm sorry," she faltered, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to startle you. I'm just looking for stories," I managed, though I felt as if her presence had unlocked a part of me I didn't fully understand. It felt almost sacred to share this intimacy, even though a thread of wariness tugged at my heart. She looked up, her eyes reflecting an unsettling blend of sorrow and resilience. "These stories shouldn't be buried. They deserve to be told. But they must also be handled with care. They can consume you." There was something in her expression that resonated with me, an unspoken kinship forged through shared trauma, or perhaps a reflection of my own turmoil. "Do you know about them?" I asked hesitantly. "The ones in this room, the experiences locked away?" She took a step closer, glancing around as if to confirm we were alone. "Yes. Some are mine, others are those I've encountered. I've lost many." Her voice broke, but she regained her composure quickly. "You must be prepared. These tales bleed into your heart, they intertwine with your soul. And sometimes, the darkness within them spills over." I felt a chill creep up my spine. The stories I had uncovered had already seeped into my blood, igniting a relentless thirst for knowledge that twisted into obsession. How could I balance the desire to unveil the truth while protecting my own spirit? Suddenly, her gaze sharpened, and she glanced past me, her face paling. "We should go," she urged. "Before they realize we're here." "What do you mean?" I asked, panic threading through my veins. "I didn't just come to find the stories. I've come to protect them, and now we're exposed." Her urgency felt contagious, awakening a surge of alarm within me. "Protect them from whom?" "From those who benefit from keeping them silent." Her voice trembled, that raw fear breaking through the surface. "You're not safe here. We need to leave." My mind raced, torn between the urge to flee and the burning curiosity ignited within me. But before I could respond, the chilling sound of footsteps echoed from the library entrance. Heavy, calculated, almost predatory. My heart raced, and adrenaline surged through me. The woman seized my wrist, her grip surprisingly firm, pulling me toward a narrow passage that wound between the shelves. As we slipped into the darkness, I heard voices approach, smooth, insidious tones that echoed with malicious certainty. I knew someone would stumble upon it. "We can't let them uncover any more." My breath caught in my throat. Were they discussing the stories? Their emphasis on keeping silence rang in my ears like a dark omen. "Is anyone else down here?" one voice asked. "Not that I saw. But keep looking." The woman squeezed my hand, her grip tightening like a lifeline. "They'll do anything to keep the truth buried," she murmured, urgency weaving through her words. "We have to act fast." And with that, the gravity of our situation, or perhaps that of the stories, pressed down upon me once more. I had wanted to uncover the heart of history, yet here I was, teetering on the brink of its hidden dangers. I wondered if I had stepped into something much larger than I had anticipated, but amidst the fear, a glimmer of hope sparked within me at the thought of bravery, companionship, and the chance to save what had been silenced for too long. Just as we slipped into the shadows, I turned back to glance one last time at the flickering lights of the library. I had only just begun to uncover the darkness, and yet, it felt like we were already racing against time. Would we manage to unearth the forgotten truths together, or would we find ourselves ensnared in an even deeper web of peril? I had no answers as we hurried deeper into the unknown. All I knew was that something momentous lay ahead, and it was coming for us. The narrow passage swallowed us in darkness, the dust motes dancing in the stream of light that filtered from the shelves. Each echo of our quickened breath sounded like a countdown, slipping away precious moments as the threat behind us loomed larger. "Do you trust me?" the young woman asked, her voice steady despite the chaos encircling us. I barely knew her, yet her conviction resonated, igniting a spark of courage within me. Perhaps this was destiny, our paths intertwining just when the weight of history felt most burdensome. I think so," I replied hesitantly. Trust felt like an anchor I wanted to grasp, yet the weight of my doubts lingered like a shadow. "Then we have to keep moving." It was a command wrapped in urgency. With a firm grip on my wrist, she propelled us farther into the labyrinth, every twist and turn pulling us deeper into treachery, yet closer to something vital. We emerged into a dimly lit alcove, a sanctuary untouched by the heavy footsteps echoing outside. The room was filled with parchment and tattered manuscripts, scattered like forgotten dreams waiting to be resurrected. My heart quickened with the urgency of seeking knowledge, yet terror gnawed at my insides as I recalled the malignant voices behind us. "Here," she whispered, motioning to a stack of notebooks perched precariously on a rickety table. "They hold the fragments of their stories. We need to document what we find." I nodded, urgency heightening my senses. As I flipped through the pages, each scrawled word felt alive, echoing the torment they'd witnessed. Thoughts of those who had suffered began to blur with my sense of self. Each tale poured out like sanguine ink, staining my heart with their truth. Yet amidst the chaos brewing outside, something tugged at my mind. The woman's earlier warning lingered, "They can consume you." What if the weight of their trauma swallowed me whole? "Do you think they really came for the stories?" I ventured, the words trembling on my lips. "Or for something darker? What if we underestimated their power?" She replied, brows furrowing. "What if this is an act of desperation? They could do almost anything to protect their secrets." Her uncertainty mirrored my fears, and it felt as though we were two souls adrift in a sea of suffering. But our need for hope, however small, clung to us. Suddenly, from the corner of my eye, I caught sight of a shimmering object buried under a pile of notebooks. I brushed my fingers across its surface, a pendant shaped like an open book, the golden pages embracing a brilliant sapphire at its core. "Look at this," I breathed, holding it up as if it were a relic of forgotten dreams. "Could it be a key?" The young woman's eyes widened, mirroring my bewilderment. "It might be. Keys often symbolize knowledge and unlocking the past. But why would they leave it here? Perhaps it's a clue?" I suggested, feeling a rush of exhilaration at the hint of mystery. "What if it's meant for us to discover? A means to uncover more of their stories? But what if it leads us further into danger?" She glanced towards the passage, her face etched with concern. "We need to consider the risk. We still have to escape." The dichotomy of our situation pulled at me, awakening the instinct to protect ourselves while also feeling an insatiable pull to uncover the truth. "What if we can do both?" I said, excitement bubbling beneath the weight of indecision. "What if we can unearth their stories, save them, and find out who seeks to bury them?" She hesitated, but then her gaze softened, a fleeting warmth that shone like a flickering candle against the dark. "Then we'll have to be cautious. We'll tread carefully, but we can't go back now. Not when we're so close." Both hope and trepidation coiled tightly in my heart. I clasped the pendant in my palm, feeling its warmth seep into me, igniting a potent mixture of resolve and danger. Just then, we heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps approaching. The voices were closer now, their malice palpable. "We don't have much time," she hissed. "We need a plan." A shock of inspiration pierced through the haze of our desperation. "What if we use the pendant as a distraction?" I suggested quickly. "If it belongs to them, maybe it can lure them somewhere else." "Good idea. But we'll have to be fast." Her eyes flickered with the spirit of a protector, a warrior ready to defend the stories trapped within the pages. Together, we formulated a quick escape route, vying for a balance between danger and discovery. I felt the weight of countless souls behind me, urging me forward, their stories burning to be told. Just then, a loud crash shattered the fragile silence. The voices suddenly became frantic, urgency morphing into anger. Split up. Search every corner. They can't have gone far. With an electric jolt of fear, I clutched the pendant tighter, heart hammering in syncopated rhythm with my adrenaline. This was at the moment to act. We darted down a different passage, our hearts hammering against the confines of our ribs, echoing against ancient walls steeped in secrets. Yet as we sprinted through the lurking shadows, the doubt crept back in, whispering that perhaps we were in over our heads. Would we be able to wrest those stories from the hands of evil, or were we racing toward our own undoing? Ready? The woman whispered, determination painting her features. I nodded, taking a deep breath as we exited into the unknown. But as we paused in the darkness, a familiar voice rang out, a low, haunting tone that sent chills down my spine. You thought you could hide from me? You've just stepped into a game much bigger than yourselves. In that moment, I realized we were not merely uncovering stories, we had intertwined our fates with a sinister force seeking to silence the past once and for all. And as a cold dread twisted within me, I could only wonder what awaited us at the heart of this perilous journey we hadn't even begun to understand. The air felt thick as we huddled in the shadows of the alcove, the oppressive weight of the voice echoing around us. My heart raced, each beat a reminder of how hopelessly entwined we were with something far beyond our understanding. I caught a glimpse of her face, the determination wavering just slightly, as if she too was grappling with the sheer scale of what lay ahead. We have to keep moving, I insisted, my voice barely above a whisper. Instinct roared louder than doubt. If we lingered, we would become easy prey. She nodded, steeling herself. Right. This way. With cautious steps, we slipped deeper into the maw of the labyrinth, guided only by instinct and the faint traces of our breaths ravaging the silence. My fingers brushed along the ancient stone walls, feeling the history etched into every crack, a tapestry of sorrow, pain, and perhaps, hope. It was impossible to ignore the lives woven into every narrative left behind. As we navigated deeper, my mind swirled with desperate contemplation. What stories had been birthed in the very corridors we now traversed? The mere thought of their anguish electrified my skin, propelling me forward even as fear gripped my core. Then she paused, stopping in front of a creaky door marked with faded symbols, flickering under the dim light. We should check this room. Maybe we'll find more clues. Or it could be a trap, I cautioned, feeling the pulse of apprehension. But the fire I saw in her eyes, a resolute spark that ignited the winds of fate, pushed through my reservations. We can't hesitate. We owe it to them. Pushing the door with a creak, we entered a space cluttered with remnants of lives once vibrant. Torn photographs lined the walls, faces frozen in moments of joy before falling to darkness, never to see the light again. A sense of tragedy painted the air, mingling with the musty scent that wrapped around us. Look at this, she breathed, pulling out a ratty envelope from beneath a pile of debris, the sealing wax still intact. Her fingers trembled slightly as she pried it open, revealing brittle paper inside. It's a letter from someone pleading for their story to be heard. Tears welled in her eyes, and I felt the sting of my own. Do you think it was ever read? Not a chance, she whispered, almost to herself. It's like they were writing into the void. In that moment, I grasped the enormity of our cause. Here we were, standing on the precipice of history, a bridge connecting the suffering of the past with our present. And in our hands lay the power to uncover their stories if only we could survive long enough to deliver them. Suddenly, a loud crash jolted us back into the present, reverberating through the walls of this forgotten chamber. My heart dropped as the sound of footsteps crescendoed outside the door. They're close, I whispered, panic swelling inside me. Her eyes grew wild, and she gestured toward a small window. We can't stay here. Let us go. Together, we hurried towards it, the urgency of escape spurring us onward. As we squeezed through the narrow opening, I felt the cool night air wash over us, fresh yet tinged with despair from the stories we were leaving behind, but the moment of relief was short-lived. The sound of angry voices surged like a storm. Search everywhere. They can't have gone far. We need to find them before they betray the truth. I could feel the dread creeping once more, but just as I was about to succumb to despair, a streak of kindness enveloped me, a bright flash of a figure standing at the edge of the alley. He was cloaked, his face shadowed against the flickering street lamp. Over here. He beckoned us, urgency lacing his voice. Without waiting for acknowledgement, he turned, sprinting into the twisted depths of the backstreets. Who is he? She murmured, hesitation clawing at her resolve. But as the footsteps grew closer, inching into our sacred space of uncertainty, we had little choice. Whether enemy or ally, we have to trust him, I urged breathlessly, and we followed without looking back. The chase took us through winding alleys and forgotten streets, the man leading with a practiced grace. Breaths formed clouds of desperation against the chilly night. You did well to escape, he said, darting behind an old fountain, glancing down the street. But they're after you for what you've uncovered. The stories, it's dangerous knowledge. The stories? I echoed, gasping between breaths. What do you mean? He hesitated, eyes flashing with something unreadable, before finally saying, what you hold isn't just a key to the past. It's a beacon. At that moment, a commotion erupted from behind us. The searching forces had fanned out across the city. They've found us. I shouted, panic threatening to consume my voice. Go. The stranger commanded, urgency spilling from him. I'll hold them off. You need to get to safety. If you care for the stories, you cannot let them be extinguished. No. We can't leave you. She reached out, desperation threading her tone, but he shook his head resolutely, eyes filled with fire. You are the hope they need. Trust me. In a surge of uncontainable fear and sorrow, we followed his guidance as he turned to confront the shadows of our pursuers. Each step felt heavy, anchored by the weight of choice, the lingering shadows trailing in our wake. The deeper we ran, the more I felt the story surrounding us, a living heartbeat in the confines of our escape. As we rounded a corner, I grasped the pendant tightly in my palm, the sapphire shimmering under the moonlight, symbolizing both caution and power. With my heart racing, I turned back for just a moment. But the alley was empty. The man was gone, swallowed by the dark, as if the night had consumed him whole. In that fleeting moment, a shock gripped my core. We had chosen the pursuit of stories over safety, and I realized that perhaps the act of existing in this world, this dance entwined with history, would demand discernment and sacrifice beyond anything I had ever known. Would we be able to save the tales of those lost? Or would our own narratives become just another thread woven into the tapestry of silence? As fear spiraled within me, a horrifying truth gnawed at my mind. What if the very stories we sought to uncover would also lead to our undoing? The future was now an open book, and the pages were blank, ready to spill forth whatever fate awaited amidst the shadows. The streets blurred into a cacophony of noise as we stumbled through the alleys, every burst of laughter or shriek of joy ringing hollow against the turmoil in our minds. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out the distant echoes of our pursuers and the frantic breaths of the girl beside me. We had once followed a thread of hope, but now, with every corner we turned, it felt as though we were instead being woven deeper into a tapestry of despair. Where do we go now? She whispered, her voice trembling as she clutched my arm. The warmth of her grip was a lifeline, anchoring me even as I felt adrift. Anywhere but here, I replied, finding my resolve again in the urgency of our flight. Her eyes mirrored both anxiety and the determination that had drawn us together in this moment. I led her through the labyrinth of alleys with a focus unyielding, but the shadows that danced at the corners of my vision threatened to unearth the fears I buried deep. In the midst of our frantic escape, a flicker of hope emerged. A soft glow from an open door caught my attention, casting tender light against the cold stone walls. It beckoned like a sanctuary, a promise of safety amidst the despair. In there, I urged, directing her toward the entrance where timid laughter leaked from within. We slid into a small, dimly lit tavern. The scent of brewing coffee and freshly baked bread wrapped around us like a warm embrace. Its homeliness was a stark contrast to the chaos outside, and for a moment, the weight of our situation took a hesitant step back. Patrons sat scattered around small tables, engaged in quiet conversation, oblivious to the world outside their sanctuary. A kind-eyed woman, her face lined with stories of her own, met our wild gazes. "You two look like you've been through the ringer," she said softly, her voice warm like fading sunlight. "Come, sit. You must be starving." The touch of her kindness sparked something in me, a flicker of the resolve I thought lost. "We appreciate it, but we can't stay long," I managed, my heart still racing. As we sank into a corner booth, I stole a glance back at her, surprised to find a faint smile hovering at the edges of her lips. "I could almost forget," she whispered, looking around. The laughter, the clinking of mugs, and the distant strumming of a guitar sought to wrap a layer of normalcy around us, if only for a brief moment, but then, the reality crashed back in like a wrecking ball. Our pursuers were still out there, potentially minutes behind us. "We need to find out what happened to that man," I said, my voice low but firm. "He might know details about the stories, about what we've uncovered." Her expression darkened, and I could see understanding dawning between us. Each story we unearthed held the potential for danger, not just for us, but for anyone who dared to help us. It wasn't just our lives at stake anymore, it was the legacy of every soul trapped in silence. That I slid a wrinkled napkin toward her, dipping into the ink of my worry. "What if we're walking into something we're not ready to face?" I said, writing down the few scraps of information we had about our discoveries. She took a deep breath, her gaze steady. "Each letter, each photograph we found has already started to intertwine with our lives. We can't turn away from that." Her conviction ignited in me a renewed sense of purpose. The warmth of the tavern dimmed under the weight of our silence. I could almost hear the whispers of the past, a haunting melody urging us to continue. I folded the napkin carefully, holding it like a talisman against the unknown. As we prepared to stand, her hand clasped around mine, holding me steady. "Promise me that whatever happens next, we will stay together," she said earnestly. There was a fragility to her words that echoed in my heart, intertwining my fate with hers. "Always," I replied, feeling that simple word tether me to a destiny I had never anticipated. Just then, a figure appeared at the door, battered but unmistakably determined. My heart constricted. Could it be him? The man who had tried to save us? The crowd parted, eyes drawn to him as he collapsed against the doorframe, panting heavily. "Keep," he gasped, adrenaline flooding his voice. "Keep running." They followed me. Before I could react, the tavern door burst open, and shadows swept in like a dark tide. Instinct kicked in. We had to escape once more. The hand of danger loomed large behind us, ready to sweep us into its grasp. As I reached for her hand, I felt a dizzying rush of emotion. This was it. This moment felt pivotal, a sharp turning point in our journey. The flickering light of hope that had illuminated the tavern felt extinguished in an instant, swallowed by the burgeoning chaos. Just as our lives began to spiral away from the grasp of safety, I caught a glance at her face, raw fear, but also fierce determination. "We can't let them win," she whispered, her resolve flickering with the very spirit I desperately clung to, and with that, we surged forward into the darkness once more, a storm of uncertainty and possibility swirling around us, as the shadows chased on our heels. Little did we know, the stories we sought to uncover were far more entwined with our fates than we ever imagined. As we barreled down the street, a chilling thought sank in: were we running toward salvation or deeper into the maw of despair? The answers, heavy with consequence, awaited us just beyond the horizon, their threads intertwining with our own story, a tale still taut with unanswered questions. The ground beneath my feet felt uneven, every step a reminder of how the world was shifting beneath us. The adrenaline coursing through my veins fed a fire, but the icy grip of dread clenched tighter as we dashed into the unknown. Where do we go now? I rasped, already knowing there were no easy answers. The streets felt more like a prison than a refuge, and the pulsating chaos of my heart echoed through the empty alley as we hunted for escape. Just keep moving, she urged through gritted teeth, her resilience sparking something within me. As we sprinted into the night, darkness swallowed us whole, and the shadows wrapped closer, eager to suffocate our fleeting hope. With our pursuers still bearing down on us, I darted around a corner, heart hammering in my chest. A flicker of memory surged. An old, dusty bookseller had once told me tales live on, long after the flames have snuffed them out. Perhaps here in the city, tucked away in its forgotten corners, we might unearth stories of survival amid suffering. We just had to find a way to cling to our own lives long enough to do so. The sound of footsteps echoed ominously behind us, gaining ground. We slipped into a narrow side alley, breathing hard, our chests rising and falling with the weight of our panic. The faint scent of something familiar wafted through the air, sandalwood and spice, reminders of evenings spent in warmth instead of fear. I had to focus on that, it grounded me, grounding us. Over there, she hissed, pointing toward what appeared to be an abandoned workshop. We dashed toward it, heartbeats synchronized in fear and urgency. There was a rusty door, and without hesitation, I swung it open. We tumbled inside, the air stale and thick, hidden like secrets in the silence. Inside, the remnants of forgotten crafts left behind spoke of lives once lived, a half-finished sculpture, dust-covered shelves filled with forgotten tools. In their permanence, a solitude reigned, like the silence that echoed between us. We pressed ourselves against the wall, hearts racing with the fear of discovery. Through the cracks of the door, I could see shadows flitting by, the silhouettes of our hunters searching through the alleys, relentless in their pursuit. My hand tightened around hers, our pulse quickening together until it was one steady rhythm, our shared terror made palpable. The corners of my vision pulsed, shadows threatening to close in. What if this is it? I whispered, the thought almost paralyzing. What if we get caught? A flicker of uncertainty ignited in her eyes, and for just a moment, I saw the girl beneath the tough exterior, the one still grappling with the enormity of what we were unearthing. We'll fight, she said, her voice a fierce cloak against despair. Her strength fortified me, reminding me that fear did not dampen resolve. The absence of sound felt suffocating, as everything we held close was at risk of falling apart. She leaned closer, nose almost brushing mine, the warmth of her breath creating a fragile connection that felt like an anchor in turbulent waters. There's a way out of this. We just have to find it. Her unwavering belief in our escape sparked a flame of courage within me. You're right, I murmured, my heart swelling with gratitude for the bond we were forging in the face of despair. We can't let this story end without us. After what felt like an eternity, the searchers moved past our hiding spot, absorbed by the illusions of their own urgency. We exchanged relieved glances, but not before the door creaked ominously. I shot a glance toward it, noticing the hinges rusted from neglect but gaining a life of their own. Which way? She breathed, breaking into a sprint again. There was an adrenaline rush coursing between us, and for a moment, fear transformed into a heady drive to survive. My mind raced, mapping routes I had scavenged from memory, fragments of pathways unexplored. Down this way, I urged, and we fled through the workshop, the distant echoes of the bustling city distant but alive in the twilight beyond. A few blocks away, my instincts flared. When I noticed flickering lights ahead, hope coursed through me again, perhaps a cafe, a source of gathering where danger was obscured. Here, I called, veering toward the source. As we entered, the chatter and laughter enveloped us. I pressed us deeper into the shadows at the back, willing my eyes to adjust and desperate for a moment of normalcy. The joy of fleeting moments was a siren call to me, feeding our momentum. People moved around in a blur of warmth, unaware of the harrowing storm that threatened to engulf us. We're safe, I whispered, an assertion barely forming against the wave of uncertainty crashing down. Look! She exclaimed, nudging me with a fervent urgency. At a table nearby, a group was huddled over photographs and notebooks, their discussion animated as they shared whispers interspersed with laughter. They're doing what we are, I marveled, sinking into the realization. Here were allies, perhaps strangers whose stories intertwined with ours. The thought ignited a spark of hope, a shared journey woven deeper than mere survival. But as I turned back to face her, the door of the cafe swung open with a bang, drawing a collective gasp. My heart dropped, recognition striking like lightning, the figures from the alley, the pursuers, storming in with an air of authority. "Find them!" one shouted, and my pulse quickened, echoing in tandem with the shattering of hope. In that instant, my mind swirled what could happen to us. The stories we had yet to uncover, the fate that awaited this precarious journey, all hung in the balance as we clutched each other tightly against the backdrop of impending peril. The sound of shattering glass splintered the air, reverberating like an echo of our freedom slipping away. Instinctively, I pulled her toward a narrow corridor at the back of the cafe, my mind racing with possibilities. A flicker of desperation coursed through me. What if we couldn't escape again? "Come on," I urged, leading her through the dim passageway. The muffled chaos in the cafe faded into a low hum behind us, but panic clawed at my throat, urging me onward. "Do you think?" she panted, but I didn't allow myself to think too far ahead. We couldn't afford to entertain fear, we had to rely on blind hope. We stumbled out of the back door into an alleyway lined with brick walls, the scent of garbage and dampness almost overwhelming. Moments like these, times when the world's darkness seeped into every crevice, felt insurmountable. Yet, we couldn't cherish despair, the weight of our dread was enough to shatter any last remnants of light. "We need to find a place to hide," I murmured, scanning the street. My heart raced as I pointed toward an old bookstore. Reading was a refuge I often sought, but now it might offer us protection against our relentless pursuers. As we crept toward the entrance, my fingers grazed the dusty spine of a book displayed in the window, its faded cover a stark reminder of stories long forgotten. A potent urge surged within me to reach out, to hold the past as a talisman against the darkness of our present. We slipped inside, and the smell of aged paper wrapped around us like a comforting shroud. Rows upon rows of books stood sentinel, guardians of the stories that lingered like whispers in the silence. I looked back at her, our breaths heaving in tandem as anxiety clung to us like cobwebs. "Let us find a corner," I whispered. We ducked behind a shelf lined with titles that might have captured the essence of humanity's struggles and triumphs. In the fleeting shadows, I could feel the weight of the historical tales they carried, the deep scars of torture and resilience that unfurled through their pages. Their stories now felt like both warning and hope, illuminating the path forward. "Do you think they'll come in here?" she whispered, gripping my arm like a lifeline. That I nodded haltingly, but then the fear blossomed into something else, an unexpected loneliness. "This is our story too," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "We're not alone." Time seemed to shift as we slipped into a quiet camaraderie, mirroring the anecdotes buried within the books that surrounded us. I pulled a title closer, running my fingers over the embossed letters. The cover was fraying, and I could only imagine the hands that had held it throughout the years, just like us seeking solace. "Listen," I said, recalling the words of the once joyous bookseller. "Every story matters. Survivors teach us. We can find strength in their tales." But her eyes were distant, flooded with storms of worry. "What if ours is one that doesn't find its ending? What if it's lost like so many before us?" The wave of despair behind her question threatened to sweep me under. I held her gaze, searching for the flicker of resolve I once glimpsed. "No," I spoke firmly, urgency rising within me. "We rewrite the ending. Our story isn't over until we say it is." Then, faint footsteps echoed outside. My heart dropped, putting my words to the test. We huddled lower behind the shelf, barely breathing, as two figures walked past the window. I caught a glimpse of their shadowy outlines illuminated by the glow of the streetlights, tension thrumming in their every movement. "Did they see us?" she asked softly, eyes wide with fear. "I don't know," I admitted, our circumstances tighter than the pages around us. The world felt so close, yet so fantastical, a theater of human emotion twisted by fate. Suddenly, a harsh knock echoed against the bookstore door, pulling us further into dread. I glanced at her, and we both understood the beckoning shadows of bad endings loomed behind that door. Before I could form the words to comfort her, the door creaked open, and an elderly figure stepped inside, wearing a bedraggled coat clearly meant for warmer days. He looked lost, yet somehow vibrant, his eyes alight with an intrinsic kindness that felt out of place in such darkness. "Can I help you?" he asked, voice surprisingly steady. Seeing us, he continued, "You look like you've run from a storm. Come closer, I'll not let it find you here." With an unspoken agreement, we stepped from the shadows, drawn towards the flicker of warmth he radiated. But as we moved, the shadows lingered behind us. The footsteps outside grew increasingly closer, inching perilously to our refuge. The man nodded knowingly, acknowledging our unspoken fear. "There are remnants of hope, even amidst despair," he said softly, his gaze holding ours, grounding us. "But the storm is coming." Before I could respond, a chilling shout came from the street, the voice of our pursuers slicing through the relative calm. "They went in here." The elderly man tensed, urgency bleeding into the air. "You need to go. Quickly." Just as panic surged through me, threatening to engulf every sliver of hope, I felt a rush of adrenaline. This man, perhaps unknowingly, held the key to our survival. But would we take the leap into the unknown, deepening our trust in this stranger, or would we remain trapped by fear? "Wait!" I called out, heart pounding, as I pondered the risks of leaving the bookshelf's safety. Would we follow his words, or was this refuge a fleeting illusion? The moment morphed into uncertainty, leaving us dangling between the arms of fate. As he inclined his head toward an exit, I caught her gaze, a mixture of fear and resolve mirrored in her eyes. But in that split second, the decision was made. With no time to waste, we embraced the reckless urge to fight for the rest of our story, even as the shadows closed in fast. The old man's urgency pierced through the thick air of tension that surrounded us. His eyes were alight with something resembling hope, and it ignited a flicker within my own chest, urging me to trust him. I didn't know how far we could outrun our sang-froid fate, but staying hidden behind those dusty shelves was quickly becoming an option I could not afford. "Come," he insisted, moving swiftly towards a doorway at the back of the store, framed by the scent of varnished wood and old leather. "The back leads to a basement. It's safer down there." Without another thought, I took her hand, and we followed, the bright light of the shop fading behind us as we plunged into the shadows of uncertainty. Each step into the basement felt like a slow drowning, the weight of the world pressing down. It was cold and damp, a place where time felt suspended. As we neared the end of the narrow staircase, the old man halted, putting a finger over his lips. He settled quietly into the veiled corners of the room, as if blending into the darkness itself. We crouched beside him, crammed into the confined space, straining to hear the world outside. Footsteps echoed louder now, boots striking against the pavement with a rhythmic insistence. "They're searching all the alleys. Check inside every building," shouted one voice, frantic and filled with authority. I squeezed her hand tighter, my heart thundering like a war drum. In that moment, the reality of our situation settled heavily onto my shoulders. What if they found us? What if this did become our final chapter? "Do you remember the stories we used to share?" I whispered to her, recalling the way we would escape into different worlds through books, leaving behind whatever chaos loomed in our own. "We're just like those characters. We have to persevere, even when all seems lost." She nodded, her eyes still wide, but a small glimmer sparked within their depths. "But what if we're out of luck this time?" Before I could muster a response, a loud crash echoed from above, sending shivers down my spine. The shelves rattled, the resonating sound like a bell of doom. My heart sank. Had they broken in? The old man shifted, drawing our attention back to him. "Fear can blind, but sometimes the greatest illumination comes from letting the light in. He paused, as if gathering courage. I know what it's like to lose everything, to feel the jagged edges of despair. But I survived. You can too. His words hung in the air, underneath the drum of feet above us. They peeled back the layers of my panic, allowing me to see the slightest chance of resilience. Every remnant of hope felt too fragile to touch, but I took a breath, feeling the tendrils of connection weave us together, a story written by countless others still searching for their endings. Then the sound of rapid footsteps approached the stairwell, a pair of voices creaking closer, dripping with a harsh certainty. They've got to be down here. Search the basement. We won't leave until we find them. My stomach twisted into knots, and I gestured urgently for the old man to guide us further. The faint light from the cracks in the wooden door bathed us in a flickering glow, a reminder that though darkness was relentless, it could never snuff out all illumination. He eyed the room, calculating, before pointing to a far corner where the floorboard seemed slightly loose. There's a crawl space just beyond. Quick! Go! Without hesitation, I beckoned her toward the hidden entrance. We squeezed through the narrow opening just as the door creaked outward above us, spilling shouts into the quiet of the basement. Once inside, we could feel the jagged edges of the wood scraping against our skin. It was cramped, almost claustrophobic, and I feared the cyclic fate of the characters we had once cheered on. As we huddled close, her breath hitched in silence, a melding of our fears reverberating in the dark. Then, just beyond the wooden barrier, I heard the unmistakable voice of a figure in charge commanding the searchers, frustration digging into its tone. Check everywhere. They can't have gone far. I leaned closer to her, brushing my thumb along her knuckles, trying to hold on to that warmth between us. We must remember, I whispered, there's always a path forward, even when it feels impossible. But just as her lips parted, as if about to return my promise of hope, a sudden silence enveloped the basement. My pulse raced, the dread coiling tight. Had they found us? Then came the telling sound, a scuffle of something being pushed aside, and above us, a door slammed open as light burst into the cellar. I held my breath, barely able to process the impending climax of the story unfolding. Then, I dared to glance upward, just as the flicker of fluorescent light outlined the silhouette of a familiar figure. Is anyone down there? They called out, their voice slicing through the silence like a shard of glass. My heart sank as recognition washed over me. It was someone I thought I'd lost, someone who had vanished from the very fabric of my narrative just when I needed them the most. The reality of that revelation bore down upon me with the crushing weight of possibility. The choices we forged could transform not just our story but redefine everything we thought we knew about survival and hope. Could it really be you? I breathed, tension intertwining with exhilaration. But how would this turn of fate shape our future? The whispers of the past mixed with the uncertainty of our present just before the world shifted once again, leaving one question echoing in the encroaching darkness: were we ready to face it together? Anxiety gripped me like a vice as I awaited the figure's response, half hoping I had not conjured an illusion out of desperation. The fluorescent light flickered above, casting erratic shadows that seemed to mock my fragile hopes, and yet, I clung to the sound of that voice, a lifeline in our suffocating darkness. Please, the voice urged again, like an echo of long-lost familiarity. I know you're down there. I came for you. I won't leave without you. As recognition washed over me, I dared to believe. Rena? I finally called out, my voice shaky, breaking the silence that had held us captive for far too long. The figure stepped forward, the light illuminating features I'd feared I would never see again. My heart soared and plummeted in tandem, an emotional riot of confusion and elation. Rena had been missing for weeks, swallowed by the chaos that marked our world, a world I had thought would never allow for our reunion. There's no time, she exclaimed, urgency pressing her words. They're closing in quickly. We have to move, and we have to move now. I looked to the old man, expecting him to reel against the revelation, but there was only an understanding nod, one that seemed to complement the emotional tempest that surrounded us. The light in Rena's eyes ignited a thread of forgotten warmth, and I squeezed my companion's hand tighter, drawing strength from each other. As we began to transform fear into resolve, Rena knelt down, opening a small satchel at her side. "I brought something for you," she whispered, revealing a tattered journal, its pages yellowed yet laden with promises. "I'm not giving up on us on our hopes." As she opened it, I recognized our shared dreams, visions of brighter worlds interwoven into stories of years past. "Remember when we planned to escape to the sea?" she murmured, her eyes glistening with the weight of memories. "What if we still could?" The jarring reality outside reminded me of the precariousness of our situation, but Rena's emotion rekindled flickers of resilience within me. "We just need to take that leap and believe," I said, suddenly feeling the draw to keep working towards a future that felt out of reach. As footsteps grew more pronounced, Rena turned the pages feverishly, her fingers tracing the lines we had written together long ago, a tapestry of hope that now felt achingly tangible. The heart-wrenching stories of those who fought before us remind us we carry their spirit within. They endured, so can we. With those words swirling in the air, we all forced ourselves into motion. The old man led the way to an unassuming corner of the crawl space where he had felt around for a hidden passage. "Now! Quickly!" he hissed that we followed, half-crouched, half-sprinting, every scrap of fear coiling low in our guts as we exited the darkness and crept into a narrow corridor filled with dust and forgotten memories. But before we reached a door, a crash erupted behind us, shattering the tension like shattered glass. Rena's hand tightened around mine, our eyes darting back as the searchers flooded in through the entrance above, illuminated by their flashlights, their voices echoing with the determination of discovery. "Over here!" one of them shouted. "They must have gone this way." My pulse quickened, racing in time with the chaos, and for a fleeting moment, doubt clawed at me. Perhaps I had led us into a trap, a vortex of despair from which we couldn't escape. The stories we had cherished suddenly felt like cruel jokes. Will our own story end before we could write a happy ending? Another wave of anger and frustration surged within me as Rena's grip steadied my resolve. "We won't go down without a fight," she exclaimed, her courage invigorating the air between us. We remembered each page we had written, a reminder that we could defy the darkness and claim a future. In an act of reckless abandon, we shot through the door into the hallway, racing away from the encroaching chaos. But our escape was soon interrupted. The old man stumbled, and with a loud crash, he fell against a pile of brittle old crates, sending echoes through the corridors. "Keep going," he urged, pain lacing his words. "Don't look back. You have to survive." It was then that the weight of sacrifice pressed upon me. I hesitated, torn between the man who had opened a door for us and the fierce loyalty that built my bond with Rena, but before I could make a decision, Rena's voice sliced through my turmoil. "We must not abandon him. We can't." Yet, before I could respond, fresh shouts broke through the tumult, chilling our resolve as an unexpected glow flared at the far end of the corridor, a pathway that seemed to beckon, illuminating what could have been our only escape. "Now!" Rena pleaded, pulling me forward while the old man gritted his teeth against the pain, straining to rise. Would we leave him behind, piece together the dreams we once shared without the very stories that had taught us to fight? With one final glance back, I saw him move, powerfully determined even in his struggle, urging us onward. It felt like an unspoken promise that whether we found our way to safety or not, his heart was still entwined with ours, glowing with the warmth of courage and hope. And as we dashed towards that flickering light, needing to know that we could truly escape the dark shadows of the past, I felt the weight of the world shift once more, uncertainty again uprooting the ground beneath us. What awaited at the end of this path, ready to engulf us in its uncharted territory? Instinct rang clear as we dove forward, but an unsettling question lingered in the depths of my mind: what price would we pay for our newfound freedom? The light swallowed us whole as we stumbled into the open, the scent of fresh air intertwining with the remnants of stale fear that clung to our clothes like a second skin. We emerged from the labyrinth, blinking as the streetlights flickered like stars in a sky darkened by the storm we had just fled. The alley where we had found refuge now lay behind us, leaving only echoes of chaos trailing like shadows. Rena and I stood side by side, heart still racing from the near collision with despair. Relief washed over me, weaving through the remnants of fear etched into my bones. "What now?" I whispered, half dreading the answer. With danger still lurking in the corners of our minds, uncertainty wrapped around us like a cloak. Rena's eyes were fierce with determination, an ember of fire glowing in the depths. "We keep going. The stories we've unearthed can't die here. They need to be heard." Her conviction steadied my wavering spirit, and I nodded, clutching the pendant tightly in my palm, a reminder of our purpose and the lives we sought to honor. Yet, before we could press onward, the harsh crunch of footsteps echoed in the distance, and I felt the world lurch beneath the weight of inevitability. I turned to Rena, panic flickering in my chest. "They're still out there, Rena. We're not safe yet. The stories are worth any risk," she murmured, her voice a soothing melody amidst the clamor of uncertainty. There was a strength in her words that buoyed my resolve. Together, we took a tentative step back into the world that had shaped our fears and ambitions. As we took off through the winding streets, the city transformed from a labyrinth of disillusionment to a canvas where every corner painted a story waiting to be unveiled. The weight of our shared past propelled us forward. We were two souls searching for truth amid the rubble of lost narratives. Everything around us felt electric with potential. Memories flickered like flames, courageous souls who had faced oppression, individuals whose stories wove a tapestry beyond time, threatened by forces that sought to silence them. Rena and I were stepping into a legacy that demanded resilience. We darted down side streets, weaving through shadows, blending into the pulse of the city. My mind swirled, ideas gathering like storm clouds in my chest. Would we ever find a haven from our fears, a sanctuary where we could unveil the truths we uncovered? Desperation clawed at me. The thought of losing everything, including each other, loomed large. Just as we reached a deserted square, filled with the remnants of a market long abandoned, a figure stepped out of the shadows, cloaked in darkness, yet somehow familiar. My heart raced, a chaotic symphony of dread and hope. "Is it you?" I whispered, eyes scanning for assurance. As the figure stepped into the lamplight, my breath caught. "Israel?" My brother stood before us, weathered and determined, his gaze piercing through the fog of anxiety. He had been the anchor of our shared past, a guiding light that had flickered in the wake of chaos and heartache. "I searched for you. I couldn't just let you go. Not after you vanished." A torrent of emotions surged through me, relief, anger, confusion, all swirling into a blurred realization that family bonds could pierce through the darkest voids. "You have to leave," I warned, knowing full well the dangers that shadowed us. "They're still searching." "Not if I can help it," he insisted, resilience radiating from him. "I've seen the horrors they're capable of, but together, we can outsmart them. I've gathered information. There are allies, people who want to stand against the darkness." The flicker of hope caught fire, igniting within my chest. "You know where we can go?" I asked, my heart catching in my throat. He nodded gravely. "A safe house. There are others already planning how to expose the truth, to reclaim the lost stories we've chased. But we need to move now." With Israel leading the way, we fled through the narrow streets, weaving through shadows and alleyways until we reached a nondescript building that seemed to pulse with the ghosts of countless narratives. The fractures of lives disrupted were hidden beneath a veil of ordinary life, and yet within, I could already sense the answers we desperately sought. As we entered, warmth enveloped us like a long-lost embrace. Figures gathered, faces both unfamiliar and inviting, their expressions filled with hope, solidarity, and the weight of shared purpose. We were home. "Prepare yourself," an older woman whispered, her eyes gleaming with the wisdom of hard-fought battles. "You will be tasked with carrying these stories into the light. For every soul we save, we ensure their legacy survives." Each word resounded within me like a sacred vow, washing away remnants of doubt clinging to my soul. Rena's hand squeezed mine, and the warmth of connection sprouted between us as solidarity became our armor. It felt like we were gathering an army of hearts, souls united in a single purpose, the act of remembrance, the veneration of those who had fought and suffered before us. Later that night, we gathered to listen, to share our stories, the pain, the resilience, and the triumphs of those willing to rise up against the darkness. With each tale unveiled, the room filled with an unmistakable electricity, like souls igniting as they caught fire within one another's courage. As the night deepened, it became clear we weren't just reflecting on the past, we were forging a path forward. In those hours, amidst laughter and tears, we wove a tapestry of collective struggle. Everyone contributed pieces, a position in the narrative that leaned against despair and urged hope to rise from the ashes. Standing in the middle of that circle, I let the flood of emotions sweep over me. I was not alone. We were connected, bound together by stories yet to be uncovered that shimmered amid the heaviness of despair. With our forks in the road redefining our paths, we embarked on the most powerful chapter of all. As the dawn broke outside, illuminating the world with golden light, I understood something essential. The heart-wrenching stories of suffering had birthed strength in ways beyond comprehension. We wouldn't just carry them forward, we would write a new narrative of resilience intertwined with courage and hope. And as I shared a glance with Rena, two souls charting a course through uncertainty deep down, I felt the weight lift as I whispered, "We have the power to change the ending." The sun rose higher, and with it, a renewed sense of duty pulsed through my veins, a promise to ensure that every story, every soul echoed into eternity, neither lost nor forgotten. In that room, filled with light and unwavering hearts, I realized we were no longer mere guardians but unwavering storytellers born anew. We would ensure that the heart-wrenching tales never remained buried, they would be celebrated and woven back into the fabric of existence, illuminating the path for generations yet to come. And so, we braced ourselves for the journey that awaited, armed with truth and love, ready to face whatever darkness dared to follow.